After my divorce, my daughter let me crash on her living room couch, while gifting a brand new luxury apartment to her mother-in-law. "If you wanted comfort, you should have stayed married to Dad," she told me with a shrug. That night, staring up at the ceiling with nothing but a blanket too thin to keep out the draft, I realized how invisible I had become in my own family. Before we continued, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Margaret Hill, I am 61 years old, and this is how betrayal, humiliation, and a single lottery ticket reshaped my entire existence. I never imagined I'd be living in my daughter's apartment on a second-hand couch. It wasn't even a couch meant for guests. It was the kind you fold open with metal bars pressing into your back all night. A year ago, I was still in my own home, the house I shared with my husband of 38 years. Then came the divorce, the split that left me with nothing but 2 suitcases and a worn-out bank account. I had given my entire adult life to building a family, and when it crumbled, it seemed like everyone had already moved on except me. My daughter, Claire, was 34, married to a man named Ethan, and they had 2 kids. To the outside world, they looked perfect. But inside that shiny bubble, I was the odd one out. Claire wasn't cruel, not openly. She didn't scream or slam doors. She just had a way of making me feel like I was an unwelcome shadow in her bright, polished world. She had a brand new sofa, a polished dining table, marble countertops. But for me, a fold-out bed in the living room, and a reminder that I should be grateful to have even that. I remember the day that broke me more than any other. Claire had just come home with shopping bags, designer clothes spilling out as she chattered about how Ethan's mother was moving into a luxury apartment in the city center. "We wanted her to have comfort," she said casually. "She deserves it. She's done so much for us." Her words cut like glass. Comfort. Deserves it. What about me? The woman who carried her in my body for 9 months, the one who worked double shifts to pay for her college, who went without new clothes for years so she could have dance lessons and school trips. But when I opened my mouth to speak, she snapped, "Mom, if you wanted a comfortable life, you should have stayed married to Dad. You made your choices. Now don't guilt me." That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the cold from the window seeping into my bones, and realized that I was nothing more than an afterthought. Not a mother, not family, just a burden. The days that followed felt like slow punishment. There were rules in the apartment, unspoken but clear. Don't use the good coffee, that's for Ethan. Don't touch the thermostat without asking. Don't linger too long in the kitchen when everyone else is home. I learned to make myself small, like a ghost passing through. And yet, life has a way of slipping miracles through cracks you don't even see. Mine came in the form of a crumpled $2 bill. It was a Friday, and I had walked to the corner store for bread. The cashier, a young boy with freckles, handed me my change, and I noticed one bill was older, worn. For reasons I still don't understand, I held on to it instead of spending it. That night, I saw the lottery machine glowing in the corner of the store, and on impulse, I slid that bill into the slot. I picked numbers without thinking, printed the ticket, and stuffed it into my pocket. Days passed. I forgot about it. Until Wednesday morning, when I saw the winning numbers on a television in the lobby downstairs. Froze. My hands shook as I pulled the ticket from my sweater pocket. Each number matched. Every single one. I had won $72 million. I sat down right there on the cold tile floor. People walked past me, some giving odd looks, but I couldn't move. My life, my miserable, humiliating existence, shifted in that second. I didn't tell Claire. I didn't tell anyone. I packed my things that same day, folding the thin blanket, stacking the borrowed pillows, and zipping up my 2 suitcases. I left a short note on the counter. "Thank you for letting me stay. I need some time away. Love, Mom." Then I disappeared. For weeks, I lived quietly in a hotel under a different name. I hired a lawyer, set up accounts, made investments. For the first time in my life, I had choices. Real choices. I bought a modest car, not too flashy, and I began to look for a place that felt like mine. Not just a roof, but a home. That's when I found the old house by the lake. It wasn't glamorous. The roof needed work, the walls smelled faintly of dust and old wood, but when I stepped inside, sunlight spilled through tall windows and painted the floor golden. For the first time in years I felt peace. I bought it on the spot. I furnished it slowly, piece by piece, enjoying the freedom of picking things I loved without worrying about price tags or approval. A deep armchair by the fireplace, a sturdy oak table, a bed so soft I cried the first night I slept in it, because my back didn't ache for once. The transformation in me was quiet but powerful. No one was there to witness it, but I saw it in the mirror. My shoulders straightened. My eyes lost the tired fog. I smiled again. And yet, part of me knew the past wasn't finished with me. 3 months later, Claire showed up at my doorstep. I'll never forget that moment. She stood there, her hair perfect, her coat elegant, her face pale with shock as she looked past me into my new home. "Mom," she whispered, where have you been? We've been looking everywhere. We thought something happened to you." I stepped aside, let her in, and watched as her eyes darted around the living room, the fireplace glowing, the shelves lined with books, the flowers in the window. Her voice cracked. "This is yours." He nodded. For the first time she seemed small, unsure. Gone was the sharp, dismissive daughter who had pushed me onto a fold-out couch. In her place stood a woman who realized she didn't know her mother at all. But that was just the beginning. Because the real confrontation, the truth about the lottery, the betrayal, and the power shift, was still waiting. Claire sat on the edge of the armchair like she didn't quite belong in it. Her hands twisted in her lap, her eyes roaming the room as if trying to measure every detail, every corner of the life I had built without her knowing. I poured tea into 2 cups, placing one gently in front of her. "Chamomile," I said softly. "It helps when nerves are unsettled." Her head snapped up, almost defensive. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Her voice trembled with a mix of confusion and accusation. "We were worried sick. The kids cried for you every night. You just disappeared, Mom." "Who does that?" I took my time stirring my own tea. "A woman who was tired of being invisible," I replied. Her cheeks flushed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had no quick retort. "I gave you everything I had, Claire," I continued, keeping my tone calm. "Years of sacrifice. Nights working when I should have been home. A husband I endured for longer than I should have so you could have stability. And when it all crumbled, I asked for so little. A corner to rest in. But what I got was a couch and lectures about my choices." Claire winced, as if my words struck harder than any shout could. She whispered, "It wasn't meant to be cruel." "But it was," I said firmly. "Whether you meant it or not." Silence stretched between us. She looked small in that armchair, smaller than I'd ever seen her. For the first time, she wasn't the one holding all the power in the room. Finally, she said, How did you manage all this?" Her hand gestured around the house. The furniture, the flowers, the glow of stability she had never imagined me holding again. I smiled faintly. "Let's just say life handed me a card I never expected." Her brows furrowed, but I didn't elaborate. Some truths weren't ready to be laid bare just yet. Word spread quickly after Claire's visit. Within a week, Ethan came by, tall and polished in his business suit, carrying a bottle of wine as a peace offering. His charm was as practiced as ever. "Margaret," he said warmly, "we've missed you. The kids miss you terribly. Why don't you come visit this weekend?" I looked at him evenly. "I'll visit when I decide to, not because guilt drags me there." His smile faltered just slightly before he quickly recovered. Of course. I just meant we'd love to have you." "And Claire?" "Well, she feels awful about how things went before." I didn't respond. I simply let the silence linger until it grew uncomfortable. Because here was the truth. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt, not in the same raw way. I had moved beyond it. What remained was a cool, measured distance, one that made them uneasy. Months rolled on, and my life flourished in ways I'd never dreamed possible. I joined a gardening club, spent mornings walking by the lake, evenings reading in the firelight. I learned to cook dishes I'd never had time for before. I even traveled, Paris, Rome, Lisbon, sending postcards only to myself, a record of a woman finally living. Claire visited more often, sometimes with the children, sometimes alone. Each time, her eyes carried the same mixture of guilt and wonder, as if she still couldn't reconcile the mother she had pitted with the woman she now saw before her. One evening, as the children played by the fireplace, Claire finally broke. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I don't know what came over me back then. I thought you'd always be there no matter how I treated you. And when you left, I realized how much I had taken you for granted." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was wrong, Mom, about everything. And I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long time. The apology was genuine, but wounds that deep don't vanish overnight. "Claire," I said quietly, "sorry is a start, but it's not the finish line. Trust is rebuilt slowly, and it will take time." She nodded, shoulders shaking, and for the first time in years, she seemed like the little girl who used to cling to my hand at the bus stop, not the woman who had pushed me aside. It wasn't until nearly a year later that the truth of my fortune came out. I hadn't intended to share it, but fate has a way of pulling curtains aside. A local newspaper ran a feature on lottery winners who had used their wealth to rebuild their lives. My name, my story, my house by the lake. It was all there in print. The phone rang endlessly that day. Claire, Ethan, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to talk, to reconnect, to suddenly remember I existed. When Claire finally reached me, her voice was tight. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom? $72 million. And you kept it a secret." "Because it wasn't about the money," I answered calmly. "It was about reclaiming my dignity. You would have looked at me differently if you knew. I wanted to build myself first, before the numbers on a check defined me again." She was silent on the other end. Then softly she said, "I understand," and I believed her. The years since have been kinder than I ever imagined. My house is full of laughter now, but on my terms. Claire and I rebuilt slowly, carefully. She learned to respect me, not as a dependent, not as a burden, but as a woman who had carved her own path. Sometimes she still slips into old habits, but I remind her with a look, a gentle correction. And she catches herself, apologizes, and tries again. Ethan is polite, almost overly so, as if afraid I might pull the rug from under him at any moment. That suits me fine. And the children, my sweet grandchildren, they only know me as the grandmother with the big garden, the cozy fireplace, the endless supply of cookies. They don't know about the nights I cried myself to sleep on a couch, or the humiliation of being told I didn't deserve comfort. They just know me as strong, steady, loving. And that is enough. Looking back, I realized the money was never the real prize. The real victory was finding myself again. I am no longer the woman who begged for scraps of kindness. I am Margaret Hill, a woman who rose from humiliation to independence, from invisibility to presence. And every time I sit by my fireplace, a book in hand and peace in my heart, I remember that the tables turned not because of luck, but because I finally decided I was worth more. Because in the end, revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's as quiet as a woman finally living the life she was told she could never have. If you've ever felt replaced, pushed aside, or forgotten by the very people you sacrificed everything for, remember this. Life has a way of turning tables when you least expect it. My journey proved that even a broken life can rise again, stronger than before. And if my story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the stories we share are the reminders we all need to keep going.